Ever feel like the financial world is speaking a different language?
Yeah, definitely. It's easy to feel lost in the jargon.
Totally. So today we're diving into the world of Bitcoin.
Gitcoin, huh? Everyone's got an opinion on that one.
Right. But we're going beyond the hype, beyond the headlines.
Sounds good, sounds good. I'm all for a deeper look.
We're digging into a BlackRock research paper, Bitcoin, a unique diversifier.
Okay, BlackRock. So we're talking serious financial analysis here.
Absolutely. No hot takes, just trying to understand what makes this thing tick.
I like it. So what's the mission of this deep dive?
Well, we're going to try to demystify Bitcoin a bit, see if it really lives up to that uncorrelated asset label.
Right, because that's a big claim.
It is. And we're going to uncover what its historical performance might actually tell us.
The data doesn't lie, as they say. Let's get into it.
Okay, so the paper starts, and I appreciate this, it starts with the problem Bitcoin was designed to solve.
Yeah, because it didn't just appear out of nowhere.
Exactly. It's not just some Silicon Valley tech gadget.
Okay, so what problem are we talking about here?
Well, think about the flaws of traditional currencies.
Flaws, right, like inflation. That's a big one these days.
Huge. And then there's the control, right? Centralized in the hands of, well, who knows who, really.
It's like, who are these people making decisions about my money?
Exactly. And good luck trying to send that money across the globe instantly.
Oh, tell me about it. International transfers.
Yeah.
The fees, the delays. It's painful.
So the paper highlights these limitations to kind of set the stage for, why Bitcoin might appeal to some people.
Okay, makes sense. So what's Bitcoin's solution?
Well, for starters, limited supply. Only 21 million Bitcoins will ever exist.
Built-in scarcity. Got it.
Then there's the whole decentralized thing. No single entity calling the shots.
Interesting. And that plays into the whole outside the system appeal, right?
Exactly. And of course, it's digitally native, perfect for today's interconnected world.
Right. I mean, everything's digital these days.
Totally. But, okay, those are kind of the buzzwords, right? Limited supply, decentralized, digital. But what do they actually mean for someone like me, an investor?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
Right. So it boils down to this. Bitcoin offers exposure to something totally new. It's what they call a non-sovereign asset, meaning no single country controls it.
No single country. So it's like its own thing then.
Exactly. Imagine a currency with global reach operating completely outside the traditional financial system.
Wow. Okay, I see why people are intrigued by this.
Right. Especially in a world where, people are more and more concerned about things like inflation and like geopolitical instability.
Yeah, it's hard to ignore that stuff these days.
Totally. Okay, but let's get to the heart of the matter here. Is Bitcoin truly uncorrelated to traditional markets, like a lot of people believe?
Because if it is, that could be a very powerful tool in a portfolio, right?
So the research, it actually dives into the data. It gets pretty interesting.
Okay, let's hear it. Does it hold up? Is Bitcoin really this, detached force in the financial universe?
So here's the thing. Over the long term, the paper, it found a surprisingly low correlation to traditional assets, like stocks and bonds.
Huh. Interesting. So there is some evidence to support that whole uncorrelated idea.
There is. However, and this is important, there have been these short-term periods where Bitcoin, it seemed to move more in sync with the markets.
Ah, so it's not completely immune to those global panic moments, when everyone's hitting the sell button.
Exactly. Okay, so maybe Bitcoin isn't totally immune to those market swings.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the takeaway? Why should we care about these short-term exceptions?
Well, because they actually reveal something really interesting about, Bitcoin's nature.
Okay, I'm listening.
So the paper suggests that it's 247 trading, right? And the fact that it settles almost instantly.
Right, much faster than traditional markets.
Exactly. That makes it kind of attractive when traditional markets, they kind of freeze up a bit.
Interesting. So it's like those moments when the system isn't really working as smoothly as it should.
Exactly. Think of it like, okay, you're at a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And they only take cash, but you left your wallet at home.
Oh, that's the worst.
The worst. But suddenly having, that digital currency right there on your phone, it's a lifesaver.
So in times of uncertainty, Bitcoin, it becomes kind of the go-to option.
Yeah, even if it wasn't part of the initial plan. It's interesting.
That's so interesting. And that kind of connects to another point the paper made that I thought was fascinating, this whole flight to safety idea.
Flight to safety with Bitcoin. I don't know about that.
Right. I mean, isn't that usually like gold or government bonds? Bitcoin just seems a bit more, volatile for that label.
It does, yeah. You're right. It's definitely not what you'd traditionally think of.
Right. So this is what I found so fascinating. The paper, it gives these really specific examples. Like, remember the U.S.-Iran tensions back in 2020?
Yeah.
The COVID outbreak? Even the war in Ukraine. What's crazy is they found this pattern.
A pattern. Okay, what kind of pattern?
So often you'd see this temporary dip in Bitcoin's price, almost like a knee-jerk reaction, and then a pretty significant rally.
Huh. So it's like initially people, they kind of gravitate to those familiar safe havens, and then they're like, wait a minute, maybe this whole outside the system thing isn't such a bad idea after all.
Totally.
It's probably, a combination of things at play. I mean, you've got market mechanics, investor psychology.
Right. It's complex.
Exactly. And I think Bitcoin, because it's still a relatively new asset class, it might just get initially overlooked. When people are panicking, they go for what they know. But then as things develop, those unique characteristics, that limited supply, that decentralized nature, they start to really stand out.
Yeah, it's almost like, you've got your trusty old compass. And even though your smartphone GPS is usually your go-to when that GPS goes on the fritz, that old compass suddenly seems pretty reliable.
Love that analogy. That's a good one.
But speaking of uncertainty, the paper also connected Bitcoin to something else that I think is on a lot of people's minds these days. U.S. debt.
Ah, yeah, that's the elephant in the room, isn't it?
Right. And the paper, they don't shy away from it at all. There's this one chart they include. It's kind of alarming, actually. It shows just how quickly U.S. debt is growing.
Yeah, you see those headlines everywhere. It's definitely a concern.
So do you think this is part of what's fueling the interest in these alternative assets?
Yeah.
Like Bitcoin?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just like, individual investors anymore. We're talking big players, institutions, pension funds, hedge funds. They're all starting to look at Bitcoin as a potential hedge.
A hedge against what exactly?
Against a future where, well, the global financial system as we know it, it might look very, very different.
So it's like preparing for this financial hurricane that, you're not even sure if or when it's going to hit. But you'd rather have that extra layer of protection. Just in case.
Exactly. It's about being prepared. But, and this is a big but, it's super important to remember that Bitcoin is still a young asset.
It's still figuring things out.
Right. And with that youth comes volatility.
So it's not like a guaranteed safe haven or anything. There's still a lot of risk involved.
100%. And the paper, it really hammers this point home. It emphasizes that Bitcoin's risks, they're unique. You can't compare them to anything else.
It's like we're trying to use our old tools for something brand new.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't quite work.
You got it. It's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
And when it comes to actually putting Bitcoin in a portfolio, not just talking about it, the paper, it suggests like a cautious approach.
Okay, caution is probably wise, especially with something this new.
Right. So they talk about the Sharpe ratio, which is, it's a way to kind of measure risk-adjusted returns. And they found that even small amounts of Bitcoin have historically made this metric look better.
Okay, hold on. Sharpe ratio. Can we break that down for those of us who don't speak fluent finance?
Sure. Imagine you're making like a big pot of soup, right? Too much of one spice can throw off the whole flavor.
Totally. Like way too much salt. Ruined.
Exactly. So the Sharpe ratio helps you find the right balance of ingredients in your portfolio. Adding a pinch of Bitcoin with its, unique flavor, it might boost your returns without making things too risky.
Got it. So it's like that dash of hot sauce. Adds a little kick without blowing out your taste buds.
Exactly. But just like with the hot sauce, if you go overboard on Bitcoin, that's when things can get, a little too spicy.
So moderation is key. Find that sweet spot, which actually brings us to what I thought was the most interesting part of this whole paper.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
It asks this really big question. What if the potential of Bitcoin, what if it's not even really about the price? Like, what if it goes way beyond just buying and selling and diversifying a portfolio?
Okay, I like where this is going. What are they getting at?
The technology itself. Blockchain. Like, what if that's the real game changer?
Right, because everyone always talks about blockchain, but it still feels kind of mysterious.
Totally. Like, I get that it's secure, transparent, tamper-proof, but what does that even mean for, everyday life?
And it's not just about finance either. This tech, it could change the way so many industries work.
Okay, now my mind is officially blown. We started with trying to understand Bitcoin, and now we're talking about revolutionizing how the entire world operates.
That's the thing about these big ideas, right? They start small and then suddenly they're everywhere.
It's true. So for everyone listening, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, a little inspired, maybe even a little confused, welcome to the world of Bitcoin. It does that to you. And the learning, it definitely doesn't stop here. So keep exploring, keep asking questions, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one to unlock the next big thing in the blockchain universe. Till next time, happy diving.